Today, on February 24, 2022, Russia launched a full-scale attack from multiple directions on Ukraine. Civilians started moving farther away from the military airport, which was bombed today early morning in Kramatorsk in eastern Ukraine. Blasts could be heard in Kyiv, as well as more than a dozen other cities. But this is just an early stage of invasion. There might be more to come. The question arises, how much damage Ukraine can cause to Russia? Russia's first goal is to destroy as many of Ukraine's air defenses and air force as possible by hitting air bases and preventing them from taking off. This will give Russia control of the sky, allowing them to send in fighter bombers, attack planes, and helicopters to help fight the land war virtually unopposed. Secondly, Russia will attack Ukraine's military command and control centers, making it much more difficult for the Ukrainian military to mount counterattacks or even mount any organized defense against Russian ground forces. The problem is that, unlike the United States, Russia does not have large stockpiles of PGM, which are precision-guided missiles designed to hit a specific target, to minimize the collateral damage. And while Ukraine is a fraction of Russia's size, there are still hundreds, if not thousands, of high-value targets that Ukraine would like to destroy. The situation is rapidly changing, but as of writing this, there's still likely a large percentage of Ukraine's military standing still. However, whether or not the majority of that military will stay and fight. What will come next is the ground war for Ukraine and eventually the capital Kyiv. The next big move from Russia will be large-scale ground operations after spending months building up forces from Crimea to the eastern borders of Ukraine to Belarus. Russia has positioned itself to attack on multiple fronts. The goal is to seize key cities as quickly as possible, including Odessa, Mariupol, Kharkiv, and most importantly, Kyiv. If and when Russia gains control of those cities, Ukraine will have little hope of regaining control. Some of these will be easier for Russia than others, such as Mariupol, which is closest to the Russian-backed separatist regions. Kharkiv is also only a few dozen kilometers away from the Russian border, where a large number of troops have been stationed. Kyiv is a little trickier because it's landlocked and more centralized, but it's still only about 100 kilometers away from Belarus, another location where Russia has built up forces for Ukraine. Losing Ukraine's capital would be a major blow and could help accelerate the war's end. Russia have a few options to take the city first, since they mostly now have control of the skies. An option will be deploying the VDV, Russia's airborne forces. A few problems with this, though. First, they can only really deploy lighter vehicles. Also, they have to drop from a low altitude, which puts them in range of man-pads. As I said, without the support and heavy armor, those units could be easily defeated. The other option is a ground offensive in the weeks leading up to the invasion. Russia built up tens of thousands of troops in Belarus. From there are two possible routes to Kyiv separated by the Dnieper River, one to the east, the other to the west. To better guaranteed success, Russia would like to attack the city from multiple fronts, which would make the defenders' job much more difficult. So far at the time of writing this, we've seen Russian forces advance furthest on the western side of the Dnieper, and they have reportedly taken control of Chernihiv. The Battle of Kyiv could be costly for Russia. Kyiv is a huge city, about 840 square kilometers, and almost 3 million houses and buildings where Ukrainian infantry can hide, in waiting around corners, popping out of windows or from rooftops, and shooting RPG and javelins into the vulnerable sides and tops of Russian tanks. Russia has to worry about the skies here too, as Ukraine has thousands of man-pads. With these weapons, any close air support from SG-24s, 25s, and helicopters like the Kh-52s will be vulnerable to being shot down. I will try my best to continuously update you all about the situation. Make sure you subscribe and like.